What's up everybody? So today is a pretty exciting day. I am at Champion Car Company looking for a possible replacement to the 2011 Hyundai Genesis Coupe 2-liter turbo. And actually, as of right now, I do not own this car. This is not my car anymore. I did own this car though for 4.5 years, and it was the perfect car over the last 4.5 years. But like I said in my I'm selling my car video, I'm looking for the next step up in performance. So I have narrowed my search to 4 vehicles, these 4 in particularly. So let's take a quick look and introduce each vehicle. So right here is a 2015 Hyundai Genesis Coupe 3.8 R-Spec. It is the big brother to the 2011 turbo that I had, so it makes a lot of sense to pick this one up. This one has a 3.8 liter V6 engine, pumping out 348 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. It weighs in around 3,500 pounds and has a 6-speed manual transmission. Next up, which is pretty much the direct rival to the V6 Genesis Coupe, this is a 2012 Nissan 370Z. This has a 3.7 liter V6 engine, cranking out 332 horsepower with 270 pound-feet of torque, weighing in around 3,200 pounds, and also has a 6-speed manual transmission. And back with my 2-liter Genesis, that has a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo, 5-speed automatic with paddle shifters, and about 220 horsepower and torque. So next up, we get to the all-wheel drive turbo cars. So right here is a 2013 Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 10 MR. This has a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo, 291 horsepower, and 300 pound-feet of torque. Of course, all-wheel drive with a 6-speed twin-clutch automated manual transmission. And then last on the list is a 2011 Subaru Impreza WRX 4-cylinder turbo with 265 horsepower and 244 foot-pounds of torque. And the Evo, that weighs in around 3,500 pounds, and the Subaru is around 3,200 pounds. So we've introduced the cars, gone over a few of the specs. Like I said, I'm looking for the next step up in performance. The 2-liter Genesis was a great car over the last 4.5 years, but I want something more power, quicker 0 to 60, just faster car, a better transmission, better brakes, better differential, just the next step up. So now let's take a little bit closer look at each car. So let's check out the interior. So for 2014 and up, all the R-Specs got these awesome looking bucket seats with R-Spec embroidered, red stitching on the steering wheel, and then you have rear seats, obviously the same as what I'm used to. And then for the trunk, of course, it's the exact same as what I'm used to. Tons of space in here. So now let's check out the competitor to the 3.8 Genesis, which is the 370Z. So this is a touring model with tech and sport package. So you get the micro suede leather seats, 6-speed manual, of course, navigation, much different interior than the Genesis. No rear seats, obviously. And then for the trunk space, there's a button back here. Also get a tonneau cover, that's kind of neat. Then a good amount of space back in here. So now let's check out a car that's much different than what I'm used to. 4-door vehicles. 4-door all-wheel drive from 2-door rear-wheel drive. So being the MR, you get the leather Recaro seats, very aggressive, huge bolstering on the sides and the bottom, Recaro embroidered. So this one is the only technically an automatic, the 6-speed twin clutch gearbox. You can shift down there or using the aluminum paddle shifters. And now what is very new, rear seats with a door. And then let's check out the trunk space. This is basically a normal sedan. Not the biggest trunk for a sedan, but a good amount of space back in here. This one they just got in, so it's a little dirty. But you get leather seats, WRX embroidered up top. This one has a 5-speed manual transmission. And this one has a few bolt-ons on it, so I'm sure it is pushing out a little bit more horsepower than the figures I mentioned. Pretty similar interior space as the Evo, of course. And then the trunk, Definitely bigger than the Evo. Plenty of trunk space back in there. So basically we're comparing two really nice rear-wheel drive V6 sports cars to two really nice all-wheel drive turbocharged sports cars. So you kind of got direct competitors right here, and then direct competitors right here. And then all four of these are the next step up from the 2-liter Genesis. So let's grab the key for each car and take each one for a little spin, see what they have to offer. So in the Genesis Coupe now, let's go ahead and start it up. This car makes a lot of sense. This is the next step up from my current car. Very familiar in here, you know, the view, the visibility, everything seems pretty similar. So cruising now in the 3.8, it shares some similarities with the 2-liter turbo that I had. The overall visual aspects of it are the same. The dash looks different, but a lot of it is similar. The seat position and just the overall comfort is still there. So it's definitely a lot like the previous car, just with a manual and all the extra performance that I'm looking for. So with this car, you get 6-piston Brembo brakes up front and then 4 pistons in the rear. So they definitely grab pretty good when you want to slow down. And then as for performance in a straight line, it gets up and goes, no doubt. There's a lot of power in the car. I mean, it scoots. I mean, 348 horsepower is a lot to work with. The car is a little on the heavy side compared to some of the competition that I'm looking at. Love the sound of this V6. The 6-speed is really nice to work with. The original manuals in the Genesis Coupes were not good at all. Part of the reason why I went with an automatic, but for 2014 and up, Hyundai really did a good job making them good systems, and this one, very smooth. Easy to select the gear, very responsive feeling. The clutch is pretty nice to work with as well. So overall, Hyundai Genesis Coupe 3.8, definitely a good replacement for the turbo. It's really cool inside, familiar, which could be good or bad depending on who you are, but it's familiar and it has a lot to offer, no doubt. So now in the 370Z, the complete direct competitor to the Genesis Coupe, let's go ahead and start it up. Now this one with the 6-speed manual has sport mode, which will do rev matching downshifts and assisted upshifts. So the rev matching downshifts especially, that's pretty cool to have. So let's check out this car. So already in the Z, this is definitely a lot different than what I'm used to. The view out is really aggressive with the hood. I like how you can see hood arches. It's got a lower roof line, so it's pretty cool looking. I do really like the dash, the way it's all set up. I like the driver position quite a lot, and the whole view out is very new and it's pretty cool. And as we downshift with the rev match, that adds some pretty cool character to the car. Very flat, taking a turn. The shifter feel in this car is very similar with the Genesis. It's a little shorter, but just as direct. Definitely, yeah, a little bit shorter throws. The clutch pedal feel is really nice. As for straight line power, pretty quick, no doubt about that. You get that V6, just instant throttle response. I would say throttle response is a little sharper than the Genesis. It does have less weight to carry, less power of course, but a little less weight, so it probably is a little more nimble in getting up and going. And then this does have the big brake kit. They're not Brembo brand, but they're really big 4-piston brake calipers up front rather than 6 pistons with the Genesis. However, these are really big, so not as many pistons up front, but they seem to be bigger brakes, and you know, touching them, they're really direct feeling, and they definitely slow the car down pretty quickly. And then for first gear, definitely a quick car. So overall with the 370, I really like the interior a lot, just the whole newness of it. It looks pretty sporty. The rev matching, I like the sound of that. That's definitely cool. I wouldn't do that all the time just because I want to rev match myself and, you know, work on my own skills, but it is pretty cool to have. So now in the Evo, this is totally different with a 4-door car. The visibility out is completely different with just a lot of glass and everything. This does not have push button start, but it does have proximity key. So let's go ahead and drive this. Now this one is the only non-manual. We have a 6-speed twin clutch gearbox. So just cruising in this car, it's pretty comfortable. I definitely like it. These seats are very aggressive compared to the other two. The bolster's down low. I am really tight in them. So that is pretty cool for the performance sense. The shoulder bolstering is right there. So I like the seats. They're very supportive. The transmission is lightning quick. It's a twin clutch automated manual. So right when you let off the paddle, it shifts and it's really quick. So this car also has a set of Brembo brakes, and when you slam on the brakes in this car, just like the others, they really bite. So that is a whole different feeling compared to the V6s. This has that low end torque. This has the most torque of all the cars with 300, and the all-wheel drive and uninterruption in power with a twin clutch gearbox, it just takes off. And I'd say at least under 5,000 RPM, it is just very meaty with tons of power. So you get that low end turbo boost that I'm really used to with the Genesis Coupe. Obviously this has more power than my Genesis, but you get that low end turbo power with this car and uninterruption in power. And with a turbo engine, of course, there is a lot of room for improvements with tuning and even upgrading the turbo. You can feel that all-wheel drive pulling the whole front. Yeah, that's got some power to it, no doubt. The Evo is pretty cool. I really do like it. However, I am really leaning towards a manual. I do prefer a stick shift. It's been 4.5 years since I've owned one. I've driven tons of stick shift cars over the years, but I do prefer a daily driving one. This, however, is one of the best automatics you could get, and that uninterruption in power you don't get with a stick shift. So there are some pros and cons with not getting a stick shift, but this car does have a lot to offer. The turbo power is a lot more than my Genesis Coupe, and it's definitely pretty cool. It's a similar engine, nearly the same engine, bigger turbo, but it definitely takes off when you get up in the RPM range, and the lower gears, it's got some torque. So I like it. The driver position is cool. I like the seats, paddles are nice, so it's definitely a pretty sweet car. So now in the Subaru WRX, we'll go ahead and start it up. This one does have turnkey. So cruising in the WRX now, it's definitely comfortable. The visibility is just like the Evo. You can see out of everything. The seats are comfortable. I would say they have the smallest bolstering of the 4 vehicles. Steering wheel is a little bit bigger than the others as well. The 5-speed manual is pretty nice to shift as well. It's not the shortest of throws, but it's pretty precise and easy to pick the gear. This one has full exhaust system and some other mods, so it's a little bit louder than the other 3. So with the brakes on the car, they are pretty responsive, do a good job. And then taking a turn. Makes a lot more noise than the other cars. The handling with the Evo and this WRX, they both have a little bit of body roll compared to the Genesis and 370. So from a sports car perspective, these two are much different than the 2-seater or 2-door cars. The 2-door cars are much tighter in the turns, while the 4-door ones have a little more body roll. So this car has some low-end torque like we found in the Evo. It doesn't seem to have the higher RPM horsepower that I found in the V6 models. So the engine on this is set up a lot like the Evo. It does have less power in the stock form, but I'm guessing this has a little bit of a tune on it. So performance pretty good, not bad power at all. It has that low end turbo power. So overall with the WRX, it's really similar with the Evo. A little bit different driver position with the less aggressive seats. I'd say a little bit more comfortable seating than the Evo. The visibility just the same. Just like with the Evo, you get a lot for what you're buying. You have a practical car, all-weather control with all-wheel drive, so it can go anywhere all year round and has tons of storage. Well, there you go, everybody. Those are the 4 vehicles that I'm looking at to replace the 2-liter Genesis Coupe. Going with the 3.8 Genesis, that makes the most sense. It is literally the next step from the first generation turbo. Plenty of power, awesome manual transmission, really good Brembo brakes, great handling, and the overall comfort is definitely there. The only downside I would say with this car, it might be too familiar. I like change, I like going from something and then something a lot different. And when cruising in this, it feels just like the other one. So that, I don't know if that's a deal breaker or not, but that is the one thing I don't like about it. Everything else though, it's pretty awesome. Moving on to the 370Z, this is the direct competitor to this V6 Genesis Coupe. I love sitting in the car. The view out of it is so aggressive. The center tack, the rev matching. This really screams that two-door, two-seater sports car, which is something I've always loved. I love the look. I love the quality of the interior. I like what this has to offer. The power is there, the throttle response, the brakes, limited slip differential. Everything is quite awesome. The only downside, it is the smallest, so no rear seats, not much space behind the seats. You have a little shelf, the glove box and center console are pretty small. However, I don't really need any more space now. So during college, the Genesis was a good size, but I don't need the space. And then the only other downside, the rearward visibility is much poorer, much worse compared to the Genesis. Has a backup camera, which is beneficial, so visibility's not the best. Moving on to the four-wheel drive or the all-wheel drive turbo cars. With the Evo and the WRX, both are extremely practical for any use, any weather, all-wheel drive and all that. Tons of space, rear seats, full-size rear seats with doors, good trunk space. However, I don't need that much space. I never used the rear seats in the Genesis, so having full 4 seats like this, I really don't need at all. The all-wheel drive is pretty cool to have, and I do like this twin clutch gearbox. However, like I said earlier, I'd really want to get back into the manual transmission. It's so much fun. I enjoy dailying one, so don't know if I want that transmission or not. And then with the Subaru, very similar I'm finding with this. But anyway, these are the 4 cars that I'm looking at. Subaru WRX, Lancer Evo, 370Z, and the Hyundai Genesis Coupe 3.8. So be sure to comment below, tell me which car you would pick of these 4 to replace the first generation 2-liter Genesis Coupe. That was a great car and I'm ready for the next step. I think all of these, you really can't go wrong. They all have so much to offer, only small downsides with each car. Honestly, I'd be happy with any 4 of these cars. They all have tons of power, tons of performance, good transmissions, and these are all the next step up. So hope you all enjoyed this video and like my choices. I will be picking out a car later this week. As of right now, I don't even own a car. That is not my Genesis Coupe over there. None of these are mine either, so I don't have a car yet. I'm gonna take a few days to kind of process each one of these cars, figure out which one has what I'm looking for in it. I do like them all, so we'll see later this week. I will be doing the collection day of one of these vehicles. I'd love to hear what all you guys think. So thank you all for watching. Thanks again to Champion Car Company for letting me check out their really cool selection of sports cars. They have my car now here, well, their car now here for sale. That's their Genesis Coupe. Awesome selection of cars they have here, and one of these will be my new car. So thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you guys next video, collecting my new car.